like to move, we like to be moved around, and I think as kids, especially as young boys, the dream is always to be able to be moved along without having to put any effort in. And you sort of evolve as you get older, from running to riding a skateboard to riding a bicycle to making your own soapbox derby car. And again, it all revolves around having an object that moves you for free, that moves you along without you having to put any effort in. And so at that early stage, those are toys. Those are things that we play with and we become obsessed with. And I think we never outgrow that. It's a very sort of deep-seated primal thing, and I think as adults we still yearn to have something like that gives us some freedom and gives us mobility and is a toy that we can have and we can play with and enjoy. And so cars just continue to fill that spot in our lives. About 1976, I came home one day and there was a Ferrari Dino sitting in the driveway, and just about knocked me on my ass. I was just dumbfounded. It was this incredibly gorgeous, curvaceous car sitting in the driveway. At the time, I didn't know what it was. All I knew was it looked like it had fallen from outer space. It was just the sexiest thing I had ever seen. And then that just completely turned my life upside down, I'd say. I became just an obsessed Ferrari fan, as I think any kid would that had access to something like that in the house. Starting in graduate school, really, started restoring cars myself, got more involved, hands-on in the hobby as opposed to just on the outside admiring and looking in. I came to a point in time, I had been working at the City Hope Medical Center for about 5 years, and you just reach one of those crossroads in your life where you realize that you have sort of a choice to make. And so, whether it was an inspired decision or a tragic decision, basically I cleared out the back bedroom of my house, bought a computer, and said, okay, how do I make a car magazine? We had some capabilities within the company, and so we started doing custom publishing for other entities. Got hooked up with the Alfa Romeo Owners Club, the national club here in the United States, and was able to start producing their monthly magazine, The Alfa Owner. Producing this magazine for the club really then opened my eyes to the whole gamut of 100 years of Alfa Romeo history. And probably more importantly, it gave me access to all the club classified ads before anybody else saw them, which was sort of like insider trading information. So now I had an opportunity to see all these cars that were going to be for sale between enthusiasts as opposed to sort of open market sales. And I had access to those ads before anybody else had access to them. So it seemed like a good opportunity to take advantage of this newfound interest I had in the Alfas and see if I could find something, something for myself. This car is a 1962 Giulia Spider. This is currently a Veloce spec Spider. So when Alfa Romeo made these, it's a 1600cc double overhead cam engine. They came in two varieties. They came in a Normale, which was a single downdraft carburetor and a 4-speed transmission. And then they had the high performance Veloce spec, which was dual Weber side draft carburetors and a 5-speed transmission. Within the Alfa community, we tend to call this car euphemistically an abnormale because it left the factory as a Normale, but it has since been upgraded to all the Veloce specs. So it has the Weber carburetors, the 5-speed transmission. That combined with the slightly larger 1600cc engine that you got with the later model, the Giulia style cars, versus the Giuliettas, the earlier cars, which were smaller displacement, 1300cc. For this particular model of car, which started in the early 50s with the Giulietta, this to me is sort of the pinnacle of that development because it's, after all those tens of thousands of cars they built and the performance improvements over time, this is where it ended up before they completely discontinued this model and went to the GTV style cars that you saw later in the 60s and the 70s. From an age where I was young enough to first develop an interest or an obsession with something, that started with cars. That was the first thing that I became obsessed with. And then I think sort of secondary to that, the next thing would have been being involved in the ocean. And both those groups share a similarity in that the people that are involved with them are just insanely obsessed with that activity. And these are people who are just really obsessed with being in the ocean and the sort of physical conditioning and training it takes to be able to race 32 miles from Catalina to the mainland or from Molokai to Oahu. And I think because it requires such a heightened level of dedication and obsession, there's a very tight bond amongst those people because they all share that same, that same passion and that same obsession. As I said, the ocean's a really big part of my life. I mean, I'm pretty much in the ocean just about every day. And so whether I'm surfing, whether I'm paddleboarding, and the days that I can't necessarily get in the ocean, I want to at least see it. I want to get near it, and so it's great to be able to to get in a car like this, to get into a convertible and drive down along the coast and be able to smell that stiff ocean breeze and look out and check the ocean out, see what the conditions look like, and be able to do it in an open top environment where you're not confined by by a top and windows and all that. You're really out and exposed to the environment, whether it's cold or whether it's hot or whatever the conditions may be. So this is a great car for being able to just drive down along the coast and check things out and see what state the ocean's in that particular day. I've had a lot of historic race cars and I've raced those and enjoyed them, but you get limited amount of time to drive it versus the amount of time you spend working on it. And so in terms of a car that I can just get a lot of enjoyment out of, this car has by far been the most.